Hi guys, it's Lodi. So today I'm going to share with you one of the greatest things in my job as a stylist. I'm going to talking about the tips. So guys, the origin of the tips start here in England. It starts in 17th century. It was one owner of one restaurant in England. He just decided to put one glass on the desk, and on that glass he write down to ensure the promptness. So you write down that it's just to say to the customers in rush, if you're in rush, you can put some tips here. So you're just going to encourage my worker to give them that motivation to serve you much faster and to serve you obviously like a better. So that was the beginning of the history of the tips here in England. And after that, in the 19th century, the tips become much common in Europe, in France, in Spain, in Germany, and in Russia, and so many countries. So the tips is something like cultural. Everywhere in the world, the tips become a part of the culture of people. An example, when we're talking about tips in Canada, the tip start from like 10% to 15%. And when you're talking about tips in USA, you know guys, like in US, the tips is much like than the part of the culture. The tips is just an obligation there. And the tips is start from like 15%. So 15% for every service you got, everywhere you go, you need to tips the people from 15%. And after that, you can be 80% or even like more like a 20%. So the tips is become right now in the 21st century a part of the culture of the people. So why is important to tips people? So obviously all the worker people, like the people working in restaurant, we're talking about the hairdresser, we're talking about the people working hostel, we're talking about the tourist guide, we're talking about the taxi driver, we're talking about the mover people, we're talking about the porter people, we're talking about the people working in cinema. So we can be like a money like a different sector. So obviously it's like all the sectors the people work like in the service. So obviously all that industry, all these worker people, example in my industry, the pay is not amazing, to be honest. We're not getting like amazing pay. The pay is kind of like a shit, seriously, to be honest, because for the hour we do like a really long hour. For all this industry, I told you, we do like a lot of hours. Sometimes can be like a 10 hours, sometimes can be like a 14 or 15 hour. So we spend like all day in the workplace, and the pay we get is so shit. So it's really important for the worker people to get the tips. Example, in some country, I was in US like this year's and last year's as well. And there in US, when I was like working there, example, I have like one of my colleagues, it was making like a double money. Even it was making like 2 times, even like 3 times, just to buy tips him salary. So tips in people on that sector is really important, because all that worker people, they just get like double pay, or they just get like 3 times them salary just because of the tips. And it's just encourage the worker people and to give like a better service. And I think when you tips people, you just build, and also you just encourage the economy to be a little bit more up, because we need that worker people as well. So we need that worker people, we need all these people, taxi driver, the waiter, waitress, the delivery. We need all that people on the normal life. So all that people participate of the economy. So obviously we need that people, and we need to encourage that people to do like this kind of job. So that's why it's really important to tips. I remember I grew up in France, so I started to work in France. I remember in France, seriously, people like to tips. There, everywhere, people like to tips. I remember in my job as a hairstylist, seriously, when I was to work in the hair salon, some people was giving me like €1, sometimes €2, sometimes €10, and in the end of the week, seriously, I remember with my tips, guys, seriously, every week I was doing my grocery. Every week I was doing my grocery, and when I was doing my grocery, I was spending like between 40 and 15 euro. I was buying my cigarette every week with my tips. Every week I was buying my cigarette, and sometime when I was going out with some friend to have a drink, to the restaurant and everything, I was paying with my tips. And also I remember I take English lesson with my cousin for 2 years. 1 hour I was paying him like 15 euro. So for 2 years I was taking like English lesson for 2 years, and I was paying my cousin with my tips. I can't believe all that 4 things I told you I was doing with my tips every week, guys. So I think without that I couldn't, like, example, yeah, it will be annoying like to spend my own money obviously for 2 years paying my cousin 15 euro. So it's just to say how important it is, the tips, and how the tips is helpful, is really helpful for the worker people. Seriously, is really helpful. I think some people say like, why should I tips that people? Because we're getting paid for that already. Okay, we're getting paid for the job we're supposed to do. Having tips is really help us like to have like a better life for sure, and it help us like to enjoy better the life, to be honest. And it's always like a gratification. You always feel like grateful about like having tips when someone tips me as a hairstylist after like a service, and someone tips me after a big service like a color or balayage or highlight. Obviously it takes a lot of time, it's a lot of patience. So when a client tips me, I'm really like grateful about that. I'm really thankful about that. I'm really happy as well, and I'm really like satisfied because I know like I make someone happy, and I make someone really feeling like amazing. So it's a big gratification for us also as well, and also it's really give to us like that motivation and that power to be like much better and better and better in the service. But it doesn't mean like tips obviously is not obligation. If you don't want to tips people, you can not like tips people if you like. In some country it's obligation, as I say. So like tips, it depends where you are, it depends which kind of country, it depends the culture. So it depends. I think some country they tips much than other country. In US again, the tips is like just obligation, so just, you just forget about that. Everything you will do, if you go to the restaurant, if you go to the hair salon, so you need to tips people, and that's it. Even if like that worker wasn't not like amazing with you, didn't make you feel amazing, didn't make you feel like welcoming and blah blah blah, you need to tips, and that's it. But obviously here in England, if you don't want to tips people, if you like, you could not tips people if you like. So right now I work in UK, and it's really a paradox because the history of the tips start here in the 17th century, but I found like the British people tips less than the French people, example, right now in the 2020. Obviously people tips like less than before. People tips less than before. I don't know why, because maybe some worker people, they go to attitude, or maybe some worker people, they're not passionate about what they're doing, so the tips is become less and less and less. Or maybe because also the finance of the people is a little bit more like a down, so there is money like a different factor. That's why right now in 2020, I mean, in my industry, and especially here in UK, I found like the tips is become like less and less and less. It's not like something usually, as I say, maybe because of the cost of the life as well become a little bit more high. So like tips, it depends where you are, it depends which kind of country, it depends the culture. I think we're losing like some, I think we're not losing, but I think like some tradition, like tipsing people become less and less like usually on some country. I think like we're just losing like that tradition because of the you know, people getting less money, or because of the worker people has not like good as before. I don't know. Anyways, guys, it's just to say like how important to talking about this subject, and to just help people, like all the customers, to have like a better understanding about tips for the worker people. So guys, thank you so much. If you like this subject, you can just put your phone up, and if you want to hear about my next subject, you can just subscribe right now. And if you are like a generous person, if you always like got a nice service by the worker people, by the deliveries, the taxi driver, if you always got like a nice service in the hair salon, if you like someone who tips, just put me that in the comment and let me know in one circumstance you like to tips people, you like to tips people when they give you like a great service, or you like to tips people just to encourage people to do their job and got like a better pay in the end of the month. Thank you so much, guys. I kiss you a lot. Bye.